You are reborn as a small tree in a primitive society. Every day, you endure the indignity of bird droppings on your face. However, these days stretch into thousands of years. During these millennia, you have grown from a tiny sapling into a towering ancient tree. You thought life would continue to be as dull as before. Until the day you saved a primitive man. 3 months passed since you saw that man. Suddenly, one day, you are awakened by a commotion. Beneath your trunk, a large group of men, women, and children dressed in animal skins appeared. While you are wondering where these people came from, you see the man you saved step forward. The man walks up to you and kneels down. He looks up at the ancient tree, muttering incomprehensible words. As he speaks, he kowtows toward the ancient tree. The people behind him follow suit and kowtow as well. After a while, the man finally stops speaking, but he and his people remain kneeling on the ground. They don't get up for a long time. At first, you are a bit bewildered. After a while, you roughly understand what's happening. You control your leaves to make a rustling sound. When they hear this sound, they all stand up from the ground. At the same time, they erupt in ecstatic cheers, though you don't understand their language. The joyful atmosphere is infectious. You are also very happy, and so, the group begins to set up camp near your trunk. They start living there. You begin to observe their lives. These people living near your base, the man you saved earlier, seems to be the leader of this group. He often leads a group of men out to hunt. Every time they return to the tribe with prey, the man removes the prey's heart and places it before your trunk. At first, you didn't understand what he was doing. But later, it becomes clear to you. This is likely a sacrificial ritual, and the prey's heart is the offering. Presumably, to these primitive people, the heart of the prey is the most precious item. That's why they offer it to the ancient tree. After the ritual, they don't take the heart away. They leave it lying at the foot of the tree. Your trunk is very special. No insects or pests come near it, so over time, those hearts simply air dry. You find these dried hearts unsightly. So you control your roots to grow upward. They eventually emerge from the ground, thus, you can control these roots to drag the dried hearts into the soil. When the primitive people saw that the sacrificial hearts had disappeared, it immediately caused a commotion. The man immediately led his tribesmen to kneel before you. They kowtowed incessantly. It wasn't until you shook your leaves to make a noise that the group stood up, relieved. The sacrifices continued after that, and you would quietly bury the hearts at night. After this happened several times, the primitive people got used to it. Furthermore, their worship of you deepened. Every so often, under the leadership of the chief, they would hold a grand tribal sacrifice. You observed them for several years, finally learning their language. You no longer had to worry about not understanding their words. During another ritual, the man you saved led the tribesmen to the base of the tree. From their conversations, you learned the man's name was Sherphone. These primitives didn't have surnames, only given names. When a baby is born, they randomly pick an object they see and modify it slightly to use as a name. This man's name means Eastern Peak. Sherphone walked up to you and held up a heart, freshly taken from a wild boar. He offered the heart to you while speaking. The gist of his words was a prayer for the ancient tree's protection, a prayer for the ancient tree to grant them more prey, a prayer for the ancient tree to keep them safe, a prayer for the tree to protect the newborns and the weak elderly. Hearing this, you clicked your tongue in amazement. These people, they really dump every responsibility onto you. You didn't even know you were so capable. However, you actually can fulfill some of their requests. For instance, protecting them from plagues and diseases. Because of your innate ability to repel insects, these people living under you rarely fall ill. 10 years flashed by in an instant. The tribe living under your shade has gradually grown stronger. From the initial 30 or so people, they have now increased to about 50. In this tribe, the hunting party suddenly returned early one day. They didn't bring back prey, but Sherphone. He had grown old after all. He lost his life in a battle with a leopard. The tribesmen buried his body not far from your trunk. Sherphone was gone. The chief was replaced by a stronger man. That man is named Heimu. Though the chief changed, their devotion to you did not diminish. In fact, it became even more frequent. After a certain sacrifice, you suddenly feel something extra inside your body. It isn't insects in the trunk, of course, but a power that you can control. This power is still very weak, though you can control it. You don't know what to use it for. You study it for a while without finding a purpose. After another sacrifice, you notice that power has grown a bit stronger. Could it be the power of faith? That concept comes to mind. Since this power grows after rituals, it might truly be such a force. You continue your research. Soon, you are certain that this power is transformed from faith. But what can this power be used for? No one is there to teach you. You have to figure it out on your own. You try to inject this power into a branch to see what effect it produces. As the power flows in, you are disappointed to find that nothing happens. Moreover, you don't have much power, and it's quickly exhausted. You temporarily give up the attempt. After some time, the power within you builds up again. So, you try once more. This time, you inject more power than before. Gradually, you notice a change. The branch injected with power begins to look different from the others. At the tip of that branch, a tiny sprout emerges. You are certain it's not a normal leaf bud. As the sprout grows bit by bit, you finally understand what it is. It's a flower bud about to bloom. You are shocked. You've been this tree for at least several centuries. And you have never flowered. You originally thought you weren't the flowering kind. It seems that's not the case. Intrigued, you take all the faith energy you've collected and inject it all into that bud. You want to see what kind of flower it will be, and whether it will bear fruit after blooming. The flower bud grows larger by the day. You hide it among the leaves. From below, it's impossible to spot. And those primitives would never dare to climb your body. You aren't worried about being discovered. A year passes. During this time, all your energy has been focused on that flower. After a full year of nurturing, you know the flower is about to open. With a sudden burst of fragrance, the flower finally blooms. It is a pure white flower. 5 petals unfurl around the stamen. The flower isn't large, only about the size of an adult's palm. At its very center is a small, green embryo. You feel that this flower is likely a self-pollinating species. Once the flower blooms, a rich aroma spreads in all directions. Below the tree, the entire primitive tribe is enveloped in the scent. All the primitives come running out. They look around in confusion, clearly having no idea what is happening. Heimu runs out as well. As chief, he is initially bewildered too. Suddenly, he looks up at the tall tree. If anything in the vicinity could emit such a heavenly scent, it must be this ancient tree that protects their tribe. Heimu immediately calls out to his people. He leads the whole tribe to the base of the tree. They all kneel down in unison and begin to worship the ancient tree. In an instant, you feel a surge of power in your body. This power is far greater than what appeared after previous sacrifices. You suspect this power might be influenced by the devotion of these people. The more sincere their worship, the more power you receive. In the hearts of these primitive people, this rich fragrance is another manifestation of the ancient tree's divinity. You channel this newly born power entirely into the flower. Instantly, the scent becomes even more intense. Below, the primitives prostrate on the ground and worship even more devoutly. Suddenly, an old man in the crowd raises his hands in astonishment. His palms, once covered in deep wrinkles, are now slowly turning rosy and smooth. Not only that, he feels his physical strength is gradually returning. His aging body is actually becoming younger. When he discovers this phenomenon, he cries out that the ancient tree has shown its spirit. The ancient tree manifests. Heimu soon notices these changes too. He kowtows and shouts to the tribesmen. Quickly, worship the ancient tree. This fragrance is a blessing from the ancient tree to our tribe. The ancient tree is using its power to grant us immortal bodies and great strength. As Heimu shouts these words, the other tribesmen also perceive the changes in their bodies. At this point, the primitive's reverence for you ascends to a whole new level. Then, Heimu suddenly stands up. Holding his hands high above his head, he shouts to you, "O powerful ancient tree, I beseech you to become our totem. I beseech you to grant us your name. We will worship you for generations, offer you sacrifices, and spread your name across this land." After speaking, Heimu kneels back on the ground. All the primitives fall silent. They kneel, not daring to make a sound. You look at these people. By any definition, this group could be considered your followers now. You think for a while. Becoming their totem would be beneficial for you as well. So, you control your branches to produce a rustling sound. Hearing this sound, Heimu immediately lifts his head. His eyes are full of fervor. Excitedly, he cries out. The ancient tree has agreed. From now on, the ancient tree is our totem. We are the tree tribe. The tribesmen behind him follow his lead, shouting, "Tree tribe! Tree tribe!" You are also quite pleased. After centuries, you finally have a bit of a reputation. You take some of your newly gained power and inject it into the flower. Bursts of fragrance continue to waft out. You are also observing the changes in the primitives below. Influenced by the fragrance of your flower, the bodies of these people have all undergone changes to varying degrees. The elderly have become younger. The young adults have become stronger. There seems to be no visible change in the children, but they have also been affected. When they grow up, they will be stronger than others, healthier, and wiser. You soon reel in the release of the fragrance. You can't let these people stay here forever. Normal productive activities must continue. When the sun is high in the sky, you open your flower again. This time, you control the scent to release only a faint trace. You are also waiting for the flower to wither and bear fruit. You aren't worried that it won't. This flower of yours is clearly not normal. It doesn't have to follow natural laws. It will definitely bear fruit. But just then, you hear a buzzing sound approaching from a distance. The sound is like a mosquito's wing beat, which annoys you quite a bit. Subconsciously, you turn toward the sound and want to wave your arm. You forgot you don't have hands now. However, the waving motion still happens. A branch swings out. You feel as if you've hit something. Could it really be a mosquito? But you recall that your body naturally repels insects. This mosquito actually didn't stay away, but approached you instead. You focus your attention on where the object was struck. At first, you don't see anything. But soon you notice a yellow honeybee. It staggers up from the ground, and wobbles its way back toward you. This time, you don't swat it away. You watch it slowly fly to your side. Then dive into the leaves. Heading straight for the flower on your body. It suddenly dawns on you. The bee was attracted by the flower you grew. The bee lands beside the flower, then begins to crawl toward it. It looks like it intends to gather nectar. You control a small twig and give the bee a light whip. It is sent flying back, but despite the lash, the bee remains persistent, crawling toward the flower again. Snap, snap. After several consecutive lashes, the bee finally seems to sober up. It looks around in a daze, as if thinking, where am I? Oh right, I smelled a floral scent. And then I wanted to get some nectar. Right. Nectar. The bee scans its surroundings, immediately spots the blooming flower, and charges toward it again. Here I come, little flower. Your brow is covered in lines. You can only whip it once more. This time, the bee finally behaves. It has noticed the branch that keeps hitting it. You thought the bee would leave after this. But to your surprise, it decides to settle down. This puzzles you. Doesn't your trunk repel insects? Why wasn't this bee driven away? Or is this repelling function actually limited? Maybe you just haven't figured it out yet. You don't drive the bee away either. If you really wanted to, all it would take is one swing of a branch to easily expel it. You feel this bee is somewhat special. So you let it build its home on your trunk. The bee flies out every day. You guess it's looking for food. It returns at night. Even though it has settled on your trunk, it's still obsessed with that flower. It tries to approach the flower at different times of the day. However, you catch it every time and whip it with a branch. Eventually, you begin to wonder if this bee has masochistic tendencies. Another month passes and your flower finally withers. The 5 pure white petals fall, but you catch and roll them up with a branch. In place of the petals, a small green fruit is left. Although it has just emerged, this fruit is already half the size of a fist. This makes you quite expectant. You wonder what this fruit will look like when it's ripe, and what kind of abilities it will possess. After all, even the flower could strengthen the primitives' bodies, so the fruit it produces certainly won't be mediocre. The bee still lives on you. Even though the flower is gone, it occasionally flies around your trunk, as if patrolling its territory. You don't bother it. On this day, a fierce argument suddenly breaks out in the tribe. 2 groups of people are confronting each other, each trying to convince the other of their view. We should drive those people away. The ancient tree belongs only to our tree tribe. No other tribe can claim it. Right. We should kill them all. The ancient tree is ours alone. The other group holds the opposite opinion. They are just passing by our tribe. Just let them leave. Why start a war with them? When we first migrated here, we also passed through the territories of other tribes. They didn't attack us. We cannot do such a thing. We are different from them. Whenever we passed another tribe's territory, we left quickly. But this group has chosen to set up camp on our land. They must be trying to occupy this place. We must drive them out. You eavesdrop on their conversation and understand the cause of the quarrel. Heimu sits between the 2 arguing groups, silent. The 2 groups continue their heated debate, both sides attempting to sway him. As the chief of the tree tribe, once he agrees with one side, the matter will be settled. Great chief, what do you think we should do? Finally, someone poses the question to him. Heimu has another thought in his mind, but he's a bit undecided. Heimu waves his hand. He says, this matter is very important to the tree tribe, and to the ancient tree. I will ask the ancient tree for the answer. When they hear that Heimu will seek the answer from the ancient tree, both sides instantly fall silent. Yes, if they are undecided, why not just ask the ancient tree? You, eavesdropping from the outside, are stunned. Why did the problem suddenly get dumped on you? The key issue is that even if they ask, you can't answer them. You can understand their words, but you can't speak back. If these people had a written language, you could control a branch to write symbols to answer their question. The problem is, these primitives don't have a written language at all. It's not that they can't learn, they just haven't created one yet. You think to yourself, if only I could speak. The way humans and animals speak seems to rely on vibration. Suddenly, it hits you. Right. Vibrations. Even though you are a tree, you can vibrate. Wouldn't vibrations produce sound? Even though you're a tree, you can vibrate. Vibrations should let you make noise. You feel happy for a moment, but then you immediately dismiss the idea. No, just vibration isn't enough. At most, you can only control a branch to strike your own body, making thumping sounds. That's a far cry from speech. You continue to ponder. The organ humans use to speak is the larynx. You recall that when air from the lungs passes through vocal cords, the cords vibrate to produce specific sounds. What you lack are vocal cords. Why not just make them yourself? With that thought, you begin to experiment. You choose a section of a branch and start to stimulate its growth. You channel a portion of your faith energy. Once this energy is controlled properly, it can make your branches grow rapidly. You guide the branch's growth into the shape of vocal cords from your memory. This process might take a long time, but time is the one thing you have plenty of, and with the help of faith energy, the speed of the branch's growth is greatly accelerated. Only a few minutes have passed. A simple vocal cord structure was thus produced by your stimulation. Next, you controlled your branches to grow a cavity This cavity was to simulate the function of lungs, absorbing and compressing air. After creating them, you began to experiment. When air blew through the vocal cords, it only produced strange puffing sounds. Clearly, the vocal cords weren't flexible enough. You began testing time and time again. You controlled the branches to keep growing, striving to grow a suitable set of vocal cords with sufficient flexibility. If you were just an ordinary tree, you would never have succeeded. But you aren't. You are a tree that is worshipped by others. Finally, after dozens of failures, you managed to create a structure that could make sounds. It was clearly different from human vocal cords. It was somewhat like a musical instrument, a cylinder with an opening at the top, with a thin and tough leaf-like structure, acting as the vibrator. When air passed through, it could produce sounds. But to produce rhythmic sounds, it was still a bit difficult. You still needed some time to practice. All these attempts of yours were done in a relatively enclosed space. You didn't want the primitives outside to hear you. At this time, Heimu walked up to you. Powerful ancient tree. What do you think I should do? I do not agree with the plans proposed by my clansmen. I once promised before you to spread your name across this land. I want to absorb this small tribe into our tree tribe, so they may also become your subjects and offer sacrifices to you. You were amused by what you heard. You completely didn't expect Heimu to have such a thought. However, you liked this idea. If more people believed in you, then the faith energy you would receive would also increase. Not bad, young man, quite the vision. So how should you respond to Heimu? You thought for a moment and came up with a way. You controlled a branch to stretch downward. That branch had no leaves growing on it, and the tip was very sharp. When Heimu saw the branch descending, he immediately knelt on the ground in terror, his head pressed against the earth, not daring to move a muscle. You were a bit speechless, but what needed to be done had to be done. You used that branch to start drawing on the soil by his feet. Soon, a simple picture was finished. Though the drawing wasn't great, the main idea was expressed. Seeing that Heimu was still prone on the ground, you controlled the branch to tap his head. Only then did Heimu look up. You then used the branch to point at the drawing on the ground in front of him. Heimu looked down and immediately saw that abstract drawing. The picture showed a large tree, obviously referring to you, and then beneath the large tree, a group of small people were kneeling in worship. Heimu instantly understood the meaning of the drawing. He bowed to you again, ancient tree. I know what to do. I will bring that small tribe back and have them offer sacrifices to you as well. Hearing Heimu's words, you shook your leaves with satisfaction. Having received his answer, Heimu immediately returned to his dwelling. He soon gathered all the clansmen and told them the answer the ancient tree had given him. Originally, some people didn't agree with Heimu's words, but when they heard that even the ancient tree had agreed, they instantly changed their attitude. You watched as Heimu led the clansmen out of the tribe, presumably to find that newly arrived tribe. You just didn't know if their trip would be successful. Heimu wanted others to believe in you, the ancient tree, but others might not agree so easily. Conflicts might even break out during the process. But you didn't have the heart to worry about those things. All your energy was now focused on creating a vocal organ. After trial, you created several different types of vocal structures. Some were similar to musical instruments from your past life, like flutes or vertical flutes. Although they could produce sound, they weren't quite suitable for speaking. Others were similar to the vocal organs of insects. This was inspiration you got from that bee living on your body. Though they could make sound, they also weren't suitable for communicating with humans. Ultimately, you were successful in creating a structure that could produce human speech. After practicing hundreds of times, you finally mastered the skill of speaking. After practicing hundreds of times, you finally mastered the skill of speaking. This process took you 6 days. After completing this, did you have the energy to pay attention to other matters? You glanced around the tree tribe several times, but didn't find Heimu. He probably hadn't returned yet. Bored as you were, you quietly moved a sound-producing branch next to that bee. A sound like a bee's buzzing suddenly rang out, instantly startling the bee awake. It flew up nervously and circled around, seemingly looking for the source of the sound. Watching it fly to and fro, you chuckled secretly. The feeling was like teasing a cat or a dog, except you were teasing a bee. You suspected that this bee was no ordinary bee at all. It always acted alone, and you had never seen another of its kind. Moreover, this bee's size was quite large, nearly the size of an adult's fist. Normal bees couldn't possibly have such a volume. Luckily, you, the ancient tree, were large enough. Hiding within the tree, it was hard to detect. Plus, you would prevent it from appearing in front of those primitives. So no one in the tree tribe had discovered it. Another 2 days passed. Heimu returned with his people. However, he only brought back his own clansmen. No one else. You knew he must have failed. But didn't he say the other side was just a small tribe? How could they resist Heimu's group? You were confident that the clansmen you strengthened were definitely stronger in terms of physical strength than ordinary primitives. Despite that, Heimu hadn't succeeded. This made you a bit curious as to what kind of tribe they were. Soon, Heimu came to find you with information about that tribe. Ancient tree, Heimu is incompetent. I failed to bring that small tribe back. Suddenly, you spoke. No matter. Tell me the specific situation of that tribe. Heimu was full of terror. He looked left and right, unable to find who was speaking. No need to search. I am right before you. I am the ancient tree you speak of. Heimu was shocked, his eyes bugging out. Then he threw himself onto the ground, crying out in fear and awe, "Ancient tree. You can speak." Without waiting for your reply, Heimu muttered to himself, "I was wrong. Of course the ancient tree can speak. It must be that we weren't pious enough toward the ancient tree before, failing to satisfy the ancient tree. That is why you didn't speak to us." You were stunned for a moment. Forget it, no use explaining. Do not spread word of this for now. Nor do you need to inform the rest of the tree tribe. Now, tell me clearly about that other tribe. The reason you said this was because you feared Heimu would shout for everyone in the tree tribe to come and worship, though every sacrifice produced a lot of faith energy. It was quite annoying if it happened too often. Besides, even without sacrifices, faith energy was still produced, just at a slower rate. Heimu scrambled up from the ground, a silly grin on his face. "Ancient tree, this is wonderful. It's wonderful that you can speak. Oh, right. I took the clansmen to that small tribe. That tribe only has about 30 people in total. If it's just about numbers, our tree tribe has nothing to fear. So why did you fail?" Heimu revealed the reason. Though their numbers are few, they also have a totem. You heard those words again. Could it be that totems have a special meaning in this world? What is the totem they believe in? Heimu replied, "The totem of that tribe is the Xiangui, and they carry their totem with them during migration." A totem can be carried away? You silently noted this information. A pity you were a tree and couldn't migrate at will. Heimu continued. "I met the leader of that tribe. I made the request, hoping they would offer sacrifices to you, ancient tree, but that leader told me they only sacrifice to their own totem. Then he took me to see it. It was a black tortoise about the length of my arm." Heimu stretched out his arm to demonstrate, "So I proposed another condition. If they won't sacrifice to you, then they must leave this land." You nodded silently and continued listening to Heimu. "But the leader said this land is fertile, and they wouldn't give it up easily. They were willing to use battle to decide the ownership of this land." I agreed immediately, and stated we would fight at once. You guessed that. Heimu and his group must have lost that battle. Otherwise they wouldn't have returned empty-handed. Heimu's answer and your guess were slightly different. Our tree tribe may have received your blessing and gained strong bodies, but the people of the Xiangui tribe likewise received protection from that black tortoise, giving them powerful defenses. I fought their leader, Aoshan, but I simply couldn't break his defense. However, Aoshan couldn't defeat me either, so I decided to return to the tribe first, to seek your help, ancient tree. After speaking, Heimu looked at you with hope. He obviously hoped you could bestow even more power upon him. This put you in a bit of a difficult spot. Regarding how to bestow power, you really hadn't done any research. And what power should you give? You only had faith energy in your body, but you had only used it to nurture a flower and stimulate branch growth. That flower was just now growing a fruit, and the fruit hadn't ripened yet. Speaking of the flower, you suddenly remembered something. When the flower withered last time, you had collected its 5 petals. You quickly went to check on them. It had been several months since the flower withered, but when you checked, you found that those 5 petals were still fresh. Maybe this would be useful. You controlled a branch to pick up a petal and brought it before Heimu. "Eat this petal." You didn't tell him to try it or anything of the sort. Nonsense, you are the ancient tree. Wouldn't saying something like that be beneath your status? You absolutely could not say anything that showed a lack of confidence. Upon hearing your words, Heimu's breathing became rapid. He cautiously took the petal and tossed it into his mouth without hesitation. As soon as the petal entered his mouth, Heimu's eyes widened. He then sat before the trunk to absorb the energy within the petal. You had used a lot of faith energy to water that flower back then. It was by no means an ordinary item. With his eyes closed, Heimu felt a continuous stream of power pouring into his limbs. The sensation was similar to when he smelled the floral scent, but much more intense. Heimu quickly thought of that scent from before. Could it be that this petal was from the flower that produced that fragrance? Heimu was moved to tears by his gratitude. The ancient tree was simply too good to him to give him such a precious thing. Suddenly, a massive amount of faith energy emerged within you. The amount was almost comparable to what the tree tribe produced during a single sacrifice. Looking at Heimu sitting beneath the tree, this faith energy must have come from him. If faith had levels, Heimu would probably be a fanatic believer. Heimu gradually felt as if something extra had appeared in his body. He didn't know what it was, only that it was flowing through his entire body. And with every rotation, it gave Heimu a feeling that he was becoming stronger. Your sensation was even deeper. You suddenly felt that on Heimu before you. There was a sense of blood connection to you. This definitely wasn't an illusion. It truly existed. The feeling was as if Heimu were one of your branches, yet different. You could only sense him. You couldn't control him. Then Heimu opened his eyes. He stood up abruptly and let out a roar toward the sky. The sound gave you a start, and your entire body rustled. Then you saw pale green mist emerging from Heimu's body. That layer of mist enveloped his body and faintly formed the shape of a large tree. This large tree bore some resemblance to your own form. After he finished shouting, Heimu also noticed the change in himself. Just then, hearing Heimu's cry, the people of the tree tribe came running out, holding wooden clubs, stone spears, and other weapons. They rushed before the ancient tree and saw Heimu covered in green light. Great chief. What's happening to you? Heimu clenched his fists. He only felt his whole body brimming with power. Heimu laughed out loud and then knelt before you with a solemn expression. Thank you, ancient tree, for bestowing this power upon me. I will surely defeat the Xiangui tribe and bring them back. The crowd finally realized that everything was because of you. Everyone in the tribe knelt in worship before the ancient tree, but you wouldn't give them petals again. You only had 4 petals left. As for blooming another flower, you had no plans for that yet. The effect of the petals exceeded your expectations. You named that power appearing on Heimu bloodline power. It could actually make you feel a blood connection. You thought the name was quite appropriate. Heimu set out with his clansmen again. This time, he was going to defeat the Xiangui tribe leader and make them completely submit. Once Heimu left the tree tribe, you found you could faintly sense his location. It should also be an effect of the bloodline power. Buzz, 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 you heard a sound and knew it was the bee out foraging. Flying back, it landed on your trunk. And only then did you notice it wasn't in good shape. It was stained with blood from some unknown creature. And one leg was dangling, presumably broken. It looked like it had been in a fight with another creature and was severely injured. It crawled to the junction of a branch and the trunk and curled up to lie down. You thought it would recover after a short rest. But by the next day, the bee was still in the same spot, motionless. It seemed to have died. You extended a branch, prepared to bury it beneath the tree. After all, it had accompanied you for a long time, and you already considered it a friend. When your branch touched the bee's body, one of its legs twitched slightly. It struggled to lift its head and looked at the branch extended toward it. Suddenly, you could sense its emotions. It was asking you for help. It said it didn't want to die like this. It wanted to live. As long as you saved it, it was willing to do anything for you. You agreed without hesitation. But how were you to save it? You were stuck again. You didn't have any means of healing. Thinking you might as well try, you took the faith energy from your body and injected it into the bee through the branch. The energy smoothly entered the bee's body, but it didn't seem to have any effect. It still looked like it was about to die. It seemed faith energy didn't work. You thought of another way. You remembered the flower you bloomed before. Its scent could restore youth to people. Maybe it could also heal injuries. You tried using faith energy to stimulate the growth of a tiny flower bud, only about half the size of a fingernail. Because the flower was small, it didn't take much effort. Nor did it consume much faith energy to make it bloom. A faint floral scent drifted from the flower. Smelling the scent, the bee spirit clearly improved a bit. But the injuries on its body remained. It was just a mental recovery. Not of much use. You continued to inject faith energy into that small flower until a drop of nectar formed at the heart. Next, you fed this drop of nectar into the bee's mouth. When it swallowed the nectar, a layer of green mist gradually emerged from its body. This reminded you of the mist that had appeared on Heimu's body. Could they be the same thing? You soon saw the effect of the mist. It was actually slowly repairing the injuries on the bee's body. Seeing this, you finally felt at ease, meaning your method was correct. With the help of the mist, the bee's injuries gradually healed. It finally stood up again. Then tried fluttering its wings a few times and flew back into the sky. It seemed it had recovered. You couldn't help but be proud of your ability. It seemed the flowers you grew with faith energy had a powerful healing effect. You began to think, if there could be a more convenient way to use it. If you had to bloom a flower every time, it would be a bit of a hassle. You quickly thought of the branches. Could you directly use faith energy to produce this kind of healing sap from the branches? No sooner said than done. You immediately began to experiment. Soon, at the tip of a bare branch, a drop of green sap emerged. Seeing the bee resting on a branch, you called it over. Using it as a test subject, you fed the condensed sap to the bee. After it ate it, the same mist indeed appeared on its body. Clearly, the sap had the same effect as the nectar. You were very excited to have the answer. This was an ability you developed yourself. In the future, you could be a healer, a tree that saves the dying and heals the wounded. After the excitement, you found that the connection between you and the bee had become close. This feeling was different from the sense of blood connection you had with Heimu. You found you could have a soul dialogue with the bee. The bee couldn't speak, though. It could only buzz each time. But you could understand the meaning it wanted to express. Not bad. From now on, you're my little brother, in charge of security patrols around the area. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As you command, ancient tree. Call me Boss Bye from now on. Don't call me Lord Dot. Yes, Boss Bye. You don't seem to have a name yet, do you? From now on, you'll be called Jean Feng. Wonderful. I have a name. From this day forth, my name is Jean Feng. You gave the little bee a name and took him in as your follower. Jin Feng, what are your skills? Boss Bai, I only know how to bite things with my mouth. My mouth is very powerful. I can bite through many things. It didn't sound particularly impressive to you. You thought to yourself that this wouldn't do. Jin Feng, after eating the sap, have you felt any kind of power in your body? You wanted to see if you could help Jin Feng master the bloodline power. So he might at least stand a chance in battle. Jin Feng calmed his mind to focus. And soon, green mist began to emanate from his body. Seeing this, you nodded slightly, not bad. It seemed he also possessed bloodline power within him. But after a while, the green mist gradually faded. And then a yellow mist began to emerge. This was something you hadn't expected. It seemed Jin Feng indeed had talent. You could see clearly that the yellow mist was actually a type of bloodline power as well, but it wasn't a power you had bestowed upon him. Instead, it was a power Jin Feng had awakened from within his own body. Finally, Jin Feng's body was completely enveloped in the yellow mist. The mist even vaguely took the form of a much larger bee. Jin Feng finally opened his eyes. He looked at the mist surrounding his body and the vague, oversized bee phantom. He was also very surprised. Boss Bai, what is this? You explained, this power is called bloodline power. It originates from your own body. As for what it can do, you'll need to explore that yourself. Jin Feng nodded blankly, only half understanding. You couldn't teach him much more. After all, you had only discovered bloodline power yourself recently. Moreover, what made you curious was why Jin Feng could awaken his own bloodline power, while Heimu could not. The image that appeared over Heimu was clearly that of your great tree form, but what appeared around Jin Feng was his own bee image. You could only temporarily speculate that the bodies of humans were more unique. It seemed more research was needed. Jin Feng withdrew his power. Boss Bai, I want to go out for a bit. You said, going out to forage? Go ahead. Just continue as usual. I'll call you if there's something I need you to do. Jin Feng buzzed as he flew up. Boss Bai, actually, I want to go get revenge. I went looking for food yesterday and ran into a snake. It tried to steal my food. So I had a fight with it. In the end, I didn't win. Surprised, you said, wait a second. You fought a snake over food? What do you usually eat? Jin Feng replied, I usually eat many things. Like nectar, fruit, bugs, and such. I eat whatever I can find. Good grief, you originally thought he was just a little bee that gathered nectar. Who would have thought he was a carnivore? But meat-eating bees did indeed exist. Like hornets, wasps, and killer bees that would hunt insects. You realized you had misjudged Jin Feng, but that was all. You told Jin Feng to be careful, as the opponent was a snake after all, which might still be hard for a bee to handle. Moreover, a day had already passed. The snake had surely left by now, but Jin Feng said, Boss Bai, that guy definitely hasn't left. There's a tribe over there, where people raise snakes. That snake belongs to one of them. Another tribe. You immediately realized the significance of Jin Feng's words. This was an important piece of intelligence. After a moment's thought, you instructed him, Jin Feng, forget about your revenge for now. I want you to do something for me. Go to that snake-raising tribe and investigate their situation clearly. For example, how many people do they have, and what is their totem? Come back and tell me after you investigate. This was a matter of planning ahead. As the tree tribe developed step by step, in the future they would definitely have dealings with other surrounding tribes. At such a time, it was crucial to know the other party's intelligence in advance, whether they became friends or foes. Having intelligence in hand allowed one to seize the initiative. Jin Feng flew away. You watched the direction in which he disappeared. You estimated that the snake-raising tribe was still quite a distance from the tree tribe. Now your trunk was nearly 50 meters high. Your range of vision was very wide. And within your field of view, you didn't see any other tribes. As for the Shangue tribe, there just happened to be a mountain in that direction, blocking your sight. Beside that mountain, a small river happened to flow by. The Shangue tribe had chosen the riverside as their settlement. You remembered when you first crossed over here. This river was nothing more than a small stream. After hundreds of years, the stream had gradually widened and deepened, becoming the river it was today. On the other side, Heimu had already led his tribesmen to the Shangue tribe. The Shangue tribe was not large. They lived in low houses built of wood and grass. When they saw Heimu and the others, they immediately assembled all their people. The men took up weapons, while the women shielded the children. As for the elderly, the Shangue tribe had undergone a long migration, and the elderly had all died along the way. Heimu stood before the Shangue tribespeople. Without a trace of fear, he roared at the people of the Shangue tribe, Aoshan, I've come again. Since our last duel was a draw, this time I will surely defeat you and make you subjects of the ancient tree. The man Heimu addressed was the chief of the Shangue tribe. Aoshan walked out with a dark face. Heimu, you are too arrogant. The last battle already proved that the great Shangue is no worse than your ancient tree. We will never give up our worship of the great Shangue. Heimu snorted. Last time was just an accident. Come, this time, I will show you the true power of the ancient tree. The two glared at each other. The people of the tree tribe and Shangue tribe formed a circle as the arena for their duel. Both men held stone spears in their hands, staring at each other intensely in the center. Aoshan let out a great roar and took the lead by launching a charge. Heimu stepped forward and charged as well. The two long spears clashed in the air, forcing both to take a step back. But they immediately lunged forward again. With constant exchanges, the two fought as equals in the arena. Heimu's physical constitution was extremely robust. He showed no fatigue despite the prolonged combat. On the other hand, Aoshan gradually began to fall behind, yet his whole body was as hard as a turtle shell. Even when Heimu's spear scraped his arm, it could only leave a shallow scratch. Even when at a disadvantage, Aoshan could rely on his hardened body to withstand Heimu's attacks. The last battle was just like this, remaining at a stalemate until both were exhausted. Heimu understood that without using the ability you bestowed, it would be impossible to defeat Aoshan. He began to mobilize the power within his body, surging from every limb and orifice, gradually converging into a river of blood chi. Heimu's arms jolted violently, emitting a vibrating sound, sending Aoshan reeling back with just one hit. Aoshan barely steadied himself. He looked up and saw a scene that shocked him. A layer of green light emerged from Heimu's body, vaguely resembling a great tree, shrouding him entirely. Haha, come again, let's see how you win this time. Heimu gripped his spear and stamped hard, leaving a small pit in the ground. As he shot forward, Aoshan hastily raised his spear to block Heimu's attack. Heimu leaped into the air, applying his full strength into the spear. As it bore down on Aoshan, Aoshan's spear snapped at the sound, and then Heimu's spear lashed out fiercely against him. Aoshan was sent flying by the impact, spitting out a large mouthful of blood in midair. Chief, the Xiangui tribespeople cried out in alarm, their faces filled with terror, as they ran to the fallen Aoshan and helped him up. Blood trickled from the corners of Aoshan's mouth. Enduring the intense pain throughout his body, he reached out and shouted, "Quick, invite the great Xiangui." Hearing Aoshan's words, several tribesmen turned and ran toward the heart of the tribe. And behind the Xiangui settlement, near that small river, there was a recently excavated pond. In the pond lay a large black turtle. But from the outside, this turtle, besides being a bit larger, didn't have anything special about it. The Xiangui tribespeople ran to the pond's edge, kneeling in panic, bowing and kowtowing to the large black turtle. "Great Xiangui, this is bad. Those tree tribe people are back and they've defeated the chief." The great Xiangui in the pond opened its eyes and lifted its head, listening to the tribesman who was speaking. "Great Xiangui, the chief sent us to invite you. We hope you can help us defeat that despicable fellow." The turtle shook its head. Seeing this, the tribesman hurriedly jumped into the water, lifted the turtle, and carried it out. Outside the tribe, Heimu lowered his spear. Within a few breaths, the mist outside his body was drawn back in. Seeing Heimu win the battle, the tree tribe members all began to cheer. Heimu waved his hand, shouting, "This was all thanks to the ancient tree's power." Ancient tree! Ancient tree! Heimu cheered along for a moment, then walked toward the Xiangui tribe. "You lost. According to our agreement, you must return with us to offer sacrifices to the ancient tree and believe in him from now on." Supported by his tribesmen, Aoshan walked out to face Heimu. "This matter isn't over yet. We still have the great Xiangui." Heimu was instantly enraged. "You dare to break our agreement?" The Xiangui tribespeople all raised their weapons against Heimu. The tree tribe members immediately prepared to rush forward. Fortunately, Heimu stopped them. Otherwise, a great battle would have been unavoidable. Heimu said with a grim face, "I'll give you one last chance. Come back with us." Just then, the men carrying the great Xiangui pushed through the crowd and came to the front. Seeing the large black turtle, Aoshan immediately shouted, "Great Xiangui, please help us repel this powerful enemy." Heimu immediately became alert, mist surging around his body, only to see the large black turtle suddenly open its mouth and bite down hard on Aoshan's hand. Aoshan let out a scream of agony. The tribesmen carrying the turtle instinctively let go, and the turtle fell straight to the ground. Then, before everyone's astonished eyes, the large turtle crawled away without looking back. Seeing the great Xiangui crawl away, Aoshan shouted, "Quick, bring the great Xiangui back." Heimu's face darkened, and he immediately waved his hand. "Stop them!" The tree tribe instantly clashed with the Xiangui tribe in a brawl. Meanwhile, under Heimu's gaze, the black turtle crawled to the riverside, leaped in, and vanished without a trace. Soon, everyone in the Xiangui tribe was captured by Heimu and the others. Heimu stood before the dying Aoshan, sneering triumphantly. "You didn't expect this, did you? Even the totem you believed in ran away on its own. From now on, there is no more Xiangui tribe." Aoshan spat out blood. His eyes grew vacant, and as he exhaled his last breath, he died completely. Heimu buried Aoshan's body in a certain spot, and then led the remaining Xiangui tribespeople back. From a distance, you could see Heimu and the others returning in triumph. With them were primitive people dragging their entire families along. This was clearly the Xiangui tribe, but from now on, these people would have to change their name. They would be integrated into the tree tribe. However, this process would still take some time to complete. Heimu brought them to the tree tribe, and then led them to you. Heimu stood at the front. "This is the ancient tree whom our tree tribe worships. From now on, you shall also offer sacrifices to him." The group knelt and bowed before you. But you only received a tiny bit of faith energy. You knew very well that these people didn't truly believe yet. But you were confident that they would soon become your true followers. After leading the sacrifice, Heimu began to settle them in. Now the tree tribe's population was 61 people. With the 32 new arrivals from the Shangue tribe, there were 93 in total. In the dead of night, Heimu came to you alone, whispering softly, "Ancient tree. Naturally, you weren't sleeping. Actually, you rarely slept since becoming a tree. It's just that sometimes when bored, you would empty your thoughts and think of nothing at all, which was somewhat like sleeping. You spoke. Heimu, you did well." Heimu chuckled sheepishly. "Ancient tree, it was you who gave me such powerful strength. Otherwise, I couldn't have defeated their chief. So, why have you come to see me tonight?" Heimu then recounted the process of subduing the Shangue tribe to you. When he finished, Heimu asked, "Ancient tree, can totems also leave on their own?" Upon hearing his question, you knew what he was worried about. He was probably afraid that one day you would suddenly abandon them, just like that black turtle. You chuckled and said, "Heimu, if the totem you believe in no longer gave you power, would you choose to believe in another?" Cold sweat broke out on Heimu's forehead upon hearing this. He hurriedly knelt on the ground, kowtowing as he replied, "Ancient tree, Heimu will worship you forever." You extended a branch to pull him up. "Don't be nervous. I was only speaking hypothetically. Surely you have the answer in your heart." Heimu stood before you, his heart pounding. "I have no such thoughts, much less an answer." Did he dare to have one? He didn't dare. You felt helpless. "Fine, I'll give you the answer directly. Just as you can choose your totem, the totem can naturally choose you. When your actions provoke the totem's disgust, it will naturally leave you. Go and ask those from the Shangue tribe what exactly they did to their own totem." Heimu nodded hastily. "Ancient tree, I shall go right away." In truth, these words were just your own speculation, though you suspected the reality was likely similar. Seeing Heimu about to leave, you quickly reminded him, "Go tomorrow, Heimu. It's night now. Everyone is resting." Heimu nodded repeatedly. "Then please rest as well, ancient tree." With that, Heimu left quickly, almost as if he were running away. You muttered to yourself, "Am I really that scary? I'm just a tree, after all." You didn't bother thinking more about it. You looked up at the sky. The sky in this world was very clean, with both a sun and a moon. But if you looked closely, you'd notice the sun and moon were both small, and felt a bit unreal. At night, there were no stars in the sky other than the moon. Of course, only you could perceive these phenomena. After all, you had lived in another world. To the primitive people born and raised in this world, who had grown up looking at the sun since childhood, this was what a normal sun and moon looked like to them. You turned your gaze back to the ground. The tree tribe people were all asleep, and faint snoring could be heard from the Shangue tribe. Splash! The sound of paddling came from the river in the distance, sounding very clear in the silent night. You shifted your gaze, and immediately saw a large turtle paddling in the water. That large turtle, could it be the Shangue tribe's totem? Heimu had indeed said that the large turtle had escaped into the river and vanished. You were intrigued by this suddenly appearing large turtle. You controlled your branches, shooting them toward the river with a whoosh. These branches were special ones you had specifically grown, using faith energy. They could be as soft as rope, or as hard as steel. You called them your tentacles. Just as the turtle sensed something, your tentacles had already touched its shell. It prepared to dive into the water to escape, but your tentacles had already wrapped around it. Then, with a pull, you dragged the large turtle straight out of the water. The turtle opened its mouth to bite the tentacles, trying to bite through them to escape. But these tentacles of yours were no ordinary branches under your control. They immediately became as hard as steel. The turtle's bite felt like it was hitting a rock. Other than chipping its teeth, it had no effect. You dragged it into your branches, where surrounding branches and leaves wove together to form a tree cage. The turtle didn't give up yet. Struggling incessantly, you looked the turtle over. It was about 1 meter long, pitch black all over. It truly did resemble the Shangue totem Heimu described. The reason you were interested in it was because Heimu had mentioned that the Shangue tribespeople had once received the blessing of their totem, giving them powerful defense. You tried to communicate with this large turtle. This was something you learned from Jin Feng. You had discovered it when you saved him. You didn't know if it would work on this turtle. "Are you the totem of the Shangue tribe?" You sent the question you wanted to ask through the tentacles wrapped around the turtle. The turtle suddenly went still. You were delighted, knowing your method worked. It could indeed transmit messages. However, the turtle just sat there, not responding. So you said again, "You can say what you want to express. In your mind, I should be able to understand." As soon as you finished speaking, the turtle immediately pulled its head and limbs back into its shell. You hadn't expected the turtle to be so cowardly. After waiting patiently for a while, you finally sensed something. "I used to be the Shangue tribe's totem, but now the Shangue tribe is gone. Great Lord, I'm just an ordinary little turtle. Please spare me. Look, I'm all shell. I don't have much meat. Please don't eat me. I don't taste good. I'm not delicious. Lord, if you're hungry, I can go catch fish in the water for you. Please, spare me. I can catch fish for you." If you let me go, I'll catch fish for you every day. You quickly disconnected from the turtle. Its chatter wouldn't stop, constantly begging you to let it go. Fine, I can let you go. But first, calm down. I have some things to ask you. You transmitted this message and immediately disconnected the connection again. After a moment, you finally saw the large turtle poke its head out from its shell. It glanced around, then quickly pulled its head back and slightly, guessing it had calmed down. You reconnected. You once gave blessings to the Shangue people? The turtle poked its head out and nodded. But Lord, they forced me to do that. It wasn't my intention. A bunch of primitives could force you to bless them? Don't try to deceive me. The turtle immediately began to complain tearfully. Lord, I'm just an ordinary little turtle. I don't have powerful strength like yours. Originally, I was just an ordinary red turtle living in a large river. One day, those people suddenly dragged me ashore and forced me to be their totem. I didn't agree at first and tried to run away whenever I found a chance, but they caught me every time. Then they threatened me, saying if I ran and got caught again, they would boil me and eat me. Those people threatened me, so I had no choice but to be their totem. Are these primitives really that fierce? Listening to the turtle's grievances, you could imagine the hard life it had lived. The people of the tree tribe were much better. At least they didn't force you. Suddenly, you remembered the scene when these people first arrived. Though they begged for your protection, if you hadn't agreed, perhaps you would have faced the same fate as the turtle. Keep in mind, a turtle has legs to run, but a tree doesn't even have legs. If you wanted to run, you couldn't. A sense of crisis suddenly gripped you. Things couldn't go on like this. Even though the tree tribe respects you now, who's to say they won't stop believing in you one day? You couldn't tie your safety to others. You had to become powerful. The turtle continued speaking. Once I became their totem, the only benefit was not having to hunt for food myself. They brought me food every day. You nodded slightly. This was similar to the tree tribe's sacrifices to you. Then one day, those people found me again and demanded I bless them. But I didn't know how to do any of that. The part you cared about most had come, looking for this turtle. This was precisely what you wanted to ask about. Eventually, out of desperation, I squeezed out a few drops of blood for them. To my surprise, it actually worked. Those who consumed my blood became stronger and didn't get injured easily. That's the whole story of how I blessed them. So, they had consumed the turtle's blood. Speaking of which, the petals you gave to Heimu could also be considered a part of your body. The tree tribe people had essentially consumed your flesh and blood too. This made your skin crawl a bit, and your unease grew. Let me ask you, when you were a totem, did you feel something extra inside your body? The turtle nodded. Back then, I did feel some extra things in my body. There's still some of it left in me now. Lord, do you know what that is? I call it faith energy. It's a power generated within us after the primitives sacrificed to their totem. Faith energy. So that is the name of that power? Lord, you are truly amazing, knowing even such things. You chuckled. This turtle even knew how to flatter you, likely hoping you'd let it go. Alright, I've asked most of what I wanted to know. Where do you plan to go now? The turtle said, I'll find a place to make a home. You smiled. How about you follow me? If you go somewhere else, you might get caught again. You thought that since your strength hadn't fully grown yet, it was necessary to have some bodyguards. You had already taken the bee as your subordinate. Why not try with a turtle? The turtle asked tentatively, Lord, can I say no? You were originally just discussing it with the turtle, trying to persuade it to follow you, but it seemed to have misunderstood something. Rest assured, I will let you go. The turtle looked at the vine still bound around it and nodded decisively. I really will let you go. Why don't you believe me? The turtle thought to itself. If I believe you, then there's a problem. You released the turtle back into the small river. It promised it would only stay in this vicinity and would catch a fish for you every day. You didn't stop it. It was good to give it something to do. Having released the turtle, you fell into deep thought. Looking at the tree tribe living beneath you, you had previously maintained your human perspective, feeling goodwill toward the tribespeople. That's why when Heimu asked for a blessing, you gave him the petal without hesitation. Now, from the turtle's encounter, you realized one thing. In the eyes of these primitives, you were just a tree. If one day, the strength of these primitives exceeded yours, they might turn against you. However, you couldn't just give up on these primitives. At least the faith energy they contributed did indeed help you grow. In the future, you had to be cautious about your relationship with them. You couldn't help them blindly, but you couldn't just ignore them either. The next day, Heimu went to the Shangue people to ask about the large turtle. You heard their conversation clearly. What those people said didn't differ much from what the turtle told you yesterday. They had indeed captured the turtle and forced it to give them its blood for their own benefit. When Heimu walked out of the Shangue campsite, his expression was very complex. He came before you alone again, lifting his head to look at the tall and straight ancient tree. After a long time, he spoke slowly. Great ancient tree, I have asked the Shangue people what they did to their totem. I already know, but Heimu's gaze became extremely determined. The tree tribe will never do such a thing to the great ancient tree. You listened silently without responding. Heimu knelt down before you. Great ancient tree, as long as I, Heimu, live, I will never let anyone harm you. As Heimu finished speaking, you received a large surge of faith energy. This made you feel quite gratified. At least it made you feel that the ritual of granting Heimu a petal was not a mistake. You wouldn't change your plans for the entire tribe just because of Heimu alone. But you shook your branches to make a sound, serving as a response to Heimu's words. Heimu didn't stay there for long. He was the chief of the entire tree tribe, and there were many things he needed to do. In the evening, Jin Feng, who had gone out for scouting, flew back. Jin Feng burrowed into the leaves and found a branch to land on. Boss, I'm back. Good work. How's the investigation? Jin Feng stopped his playful tone. I investigated thoroughly. That snake-raising tribe is called the Snake Tribe. The totem they worship is a giant snake. I searched for a long time before finding it on a mountain a few hundred meters from their tribe. That snake is huge. About this big around. Jin Feng flew up as he spoke, circling in the air. The circle he made was about 2 meters wide. You were secretly shocked. If that snake was really that big, it shouldn't be called a snake anymore. It was more appropriate to call it a python. Perhaps with the snake tribe sacrifices, it might one day evolve into a flood dragon or even a dragon. You just didn't know if this world had such evolutionary conditions. Jin Feng landed again after finishing his gestures. Continuing on, the snake tribe has about 200 people. They are very skilled at hunting and often go into the mountains to kill animals. They also raise snakes. Almost everyone has one, and many of them are poisonous. Listening to this, your heart felt slightly heavy. The strength of this snake tribe was quite formidable. Comparing the tree tribe to them, they had twice as many people, and the gap in power was even greater. If the two tribes were to clash, the tree tribe would probably have no chance. It seemed you needed to develop quickly. You thought about it carefully, and prepared to spread farming techniques first. The tree tribe's current way of obtaining food was mainly through hunting, supplemented by gathering. As the tribe's population grew, hunting and gathering alone definitely wouldn't be enough. However, you didn't immediately teach them these things. You needed the right opportunity. During this time, you focused your energy on researching the applications of faith energy in combat. Previously, you used faith energy mainly to stimulate your own growth and to create vines with super toughness and tentacles. Besides that, faith energy could stimulate healing properties, strengthen bodies, and create petals that unlock bloodline power. But these were basically support functions and didn't offer much in direct combat. Unfortunately, so far, you hadn't come up with any major breakthroughs. When winter arrived, the tree tribe ran into food problems. Many animals chose to hibernate in winter. By this time, the animals they could catch were far fewer. More importantly, there were no fruits to gather in winter, so the tribe's main food source was completely cut off. Heimu could only lead his people further away to find prey. You didn't interfere, but you noticed that as winter came, the faith energy you received daily actually increased. After observing, you realized that these primitives were praying to you, hoping to catch more prey. With every prayer, faith energy would be sent to you. When the cold winds began to howl, the tree tribe finally couldn't hold out anymore. They had gone for several days without catching any food. At that moment, a man from the former Shangue tribe, named Qingshi, ran up to Heimu. Chief, we haven't eaten for days. If this continues, people will starve to death. Heimu's face was also very grim. He knew this, of course, and as the chief of the tribe, he knew it better than anyone. Qingshi continued, Chief, can we ask the great ancient tree for help? Heimu didn't understand. Why ask the great ancient tree for help? Isn't the great ancient tree our totem? Shouldn't the great ancient tree protect us? Heimu nodded. The great ancient tree does indeed protect us. But that is no excuse for us to ask for help. Besides, we haven't truly reached a point of having no food. Even if we can't catch beasts, we can still find some things to eat outside. Heimu was referring to things like tree bark and leaves. These things could barely stave off hunger. He thought they could survive the winter that way. The man who made the suggestion was driven away by Heimu. They shouldn't trouble the great ancient tree over small matters. That was Heimu's thought. But Qingshi didn't give up after leaving. He found other members of the Shangue tribe and proposed the idea to them. Soon, he found people who agreed with him. The Shangue tribe had been defeated by Heimu's men and forced to join the tree tribe. Some were unwilling in their hearts. Qingshi planned to use this matter as an excuse to stir up trouble in the tree tribe. With their encouragement, more people with similar thoughts appeared throughout the tribe. That day, Heimu returned from outside empty-handed again, having failed to hunt anything. Qingshi immediately seized the opportunity to gather a group of people. He led them to block Heimu's path. Chief, there's no prey again today. Are you going to make us eat bark again? Heimu glanced at the large group of people behind Qingshi. Most of them were from the Shangue tribe, with a few from the tree tribe. Heimu's brow furrowed, his anger simmering. What are you doing here? If you don't like eating bark, go catch a beast yourself. Many of the tribespeople who hunted with Heimu also shouted in scolding, exactly. If you're so capable, go hunt for yourself. Get out of the way. What are you trying to do by blocking the path? Naturally, Qingshi wouldn't budge. His goal today was to force Heimu to lead them to the ancient tree. Chief, I proposed a solution before. Let's go ask the great ancient tree to grant us some food, so we don't have to eat bark every day. His words were immediately echoed. Yeah, Chief. Let's go find the great ancient tree. He can definitely grant us food. Chief, please take us there. Heimu's face grew darker and darker. These people were trying to force his hand. He took a sudden step forward, startling the group into retreating in unison. For a moment, no one dared to speak. Heimu scanned the crowd, memorizing their faces. Is this what you all think? Faced with Heimu's question, no one dared to step out and answer. Finally, the leader Qingshi summoned his courage and yelled, yes. This is what everyone thinks. Heimu laughed. A somewhat chilling laugh. Fine, then gather all the tribespeople. We'll go find the great ancient tree together. Hearing this, Qingshi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He was curious to see how the ancient tree would react. If the ancient tree couldn't grant them food, he would have a reason to persuade people to stop believing in it. As for the ancient tree actually granting food, he didn't believe it for a second. He didn't believe that tree could truly give them food. He had observed it secretly before. It was just a particularly large tree. How could a tree that couldn't move get food from anywhere? Soon, all the members of the tree tribe gathered before you. Everyone was whispering. Some believed the ancient tree would grant them food, while others did not. As chief, Heimu naturally stood at the very front. He walked up to you and led the tribe in worship. You had been observing them for a long time. Everything after Heimu's return was seen by you. From this worship, the faith energy you received was significantly less than before. You knew very well that the faith of some people in the tribe was wavering. All these changes stemmed partly from Qingshi's instigation, and partly from the fact that in the absence of food, the prayers of some people hadn't been answered, leading to distrust. After leading the tribe in worship, Heimu told you about the tribe's predicament and prayed for food. Great ancient tree, we hope you can answer our prayer and grant food to your people. As Heimu finished, the entire tree began to shake. All the leaves suddenly made an exaggerated rustling sound. Such a change terrified many people, especially those who forced Heimu to come here for food. Their faces were a bit stiff. Their expressions panicked, but they comforted themselves. Impossible. This is just a particularly large tree. You felt it was time to make these primitives understand a few things. You slowly uttered 2 words, Heimu. Heimu immediately knelt down. Great ancient tree, Heimu is here. At the same time, the tribespeople behind Heimu also knelt on the ground. This time, everyone's face wore a look of terror. The ancient tree they worshipped could actually speak. Is this really just a tree? Heimu, kneeling on the ground, secretly exulted. You lot who don't have sincere faith in the great ancient tree. Now you see his power, don't you? You spoke again, your voice booming like thunder. You asked me to grant you food? Heimu nodded slightly. Great ancient tree. The tree tribe's food is indeed running low. Some tribespeople hope to receive more food. You nodded, and the manifestation was the entire tree shaking. Those who have devout faith in me may receive food from me. When you said this, everyone in the tribe raised their heads one after another. Emotions were running high, and their faces showed expressions of excitement. Heimu also didn't expect the great ancient tree to really grant food. His expression became even more fanatical, having already fully believed in you. His faith was now even deeper. You said again, Heimu, arrange for the tribespeople to come up one by one. I will grant them appropriate food. Based on their level of devotion, your words made everyone understand that not everyone would get food. Only those with devout faith in the ancient tree would. The leaders who forced Heimu to pray for food suddenly slumped to the ground. It's over, all over. Not only could the ancient tree grant food to everyone, but he could also tell who was truly devout. They, who basically had no faith in the ancient tree, certainly wouldn't get any food. Not only that, the fact that they didn't believe in the ancient tree would be seen by everyone. By then, it wouldn't just be a lack of food. They might even be banished from the tribe. Heimu, you come up first, at your command. Heimu walked before the ancient tree. After kneeling and worshipping, a ball of faith energy immediately appeared in your body. Then, you brought out the dried fish you had prepared. Everyone saw the dried fish being held out by a flexible branch, and their breathing quickened. These dried fish were things you had stored up beforehand. The source was the Shangue turtle you had taken as a subordinate. The turtle had promised to catch a fish for you every day, and it had indeed done so. Sometimes it even sent more than one. But you were a tree. You didn't have a mouth to eat fish, so you had air-dried and preserved these fish. They were currently stored in a storage space formed by branches. Handing out some of these fish every few days could roughly sustain them until spring. You handed a dried fish to Heimu. After Heimu gave his thanks, he stood up and let another tribesman come forward. Following the same process, this time the faith energy you received was much less than what you got from Heimu. Accordingly, the dried fish you gave out was smaller. Finally, it was the turn of that Shangue tribesman. Qingshi walked before you with an apprehensive heart. After he knelt and worshipped, you also received a tiny bit of faith energy. So little it was almost negligible. You picked and chose in your storage room. And finally plucked off the tail of a small fish, intending to give it to him. However, during this time of waiting, he grew more and more panicked. Finally, he could no longer endure the wait, and slammed his head hard onto the ground. Great ancient tree, I was wrong. I shouldn't have questioned your power. I was not devout enough. I am guilty. I was wrong. Great ancient tree, I don't want food anymore. Please do not punish me. I was really wrong. I will repent. From now on, I will faithfully worship you. Li Wenyan put the fish tail back. Forget it. Hey Mu, take him away. Let him reflect properly. Hearing your words. Hey Mu immediately waved his hand, signaling several tribesmen to come up and take him away. He wouldn't be allowed out for a while. Hearing Hey Mu's method of handling it, you thought about telling them to build a prison, but then decided against it. The tree tribe currently still has trouble just eating. They clearly don't have the capacity to build a prison yet. After Hey Mu had Qingshi taken away, he continued to let other tribespeople come before you to receive the granted food. Soon, almost everyone in the tribe had received food. Only a few did not. Those few were, of course, taken away by Hey Mu's men and confined to their homes. And after this incident, the faith of the entire tribe in you clearly rose. In everyone's eyes, you were no longer just a large tree. Nor were you just a simple totem. As for what you were, these people hadn't thought of an answer yet. You told everyone to leave, but kept Hey Mu back. Hey Mu knew you surely had something for him to do. Great ancient tree, what are your orders? You slowly said. Hey Mu, do you know why today's situation occurred? Hey Mu lowered his head and answered. Great ancient tree, it is all because I failed to manage the tribe well, allowing insincere people to appear in the tribe. Indeed, you are at fault for that. Hey Mu's face darkened. Please punish me, great ancient tree. You laughed. Hearing the laughter, Hey Mu raised his head blankly. Hey Mu, I am not blaming you for not managing the people well. What I want to ask is, why is the tribe short on food? Hey Mu thought for a moment and replied, we failed to catch enough prey. You sighed in your heart. It would be difficult for Hey Mu to figure it out on his own. Better to speak plainly. Hey Mu, have you ever paid attention to those grasses that produce seeds? Hey Mu was stunned by your question. He thought about it. He usually only cared about the tracks of wild beasts. As for those grasses with edible seeds, probably only the women in the tribe who gathered fruits knew about them. Seeing him in thought, you continued, if you collect those seeds and plant them in the ground when spring comes, what will happen? Hey Mu instinctively answered, they will sprout. Correct. They will sprout and bloom. By autumn, they will produce even more seeds. You only need to plant one seed in the spring. And by autumn you can harvest a whole bunch. Do you understand what I mean? Hey Mu thought it over. One seed for a handful of seeds. If it were really possible. Hey Mu's breathing quickened. Great ancient tree, if that's the case, doesn't that mean we will have many seeds to eat? If so, we won't have to worry about missing food in winter anymore. This is wonderful, great ancient tree. You knew Hey Mu had understood. Hey Mu thought about this, wishing it were already spring, so he could hurry and plant the seeds. You thought for a bit. Just knowing to plant seeds wasn't enough. More detailed farming knowledge was needed. For example, choosing the location for the fields, when to sow, tools for tilling, and so on. These primitives understood none of it. You needed to impart the knowledge. Of course, you could choose not to spread it. After planting for a few years, they would likely figure it out slowly themselves. But you felt that was too slow. You immediately instructed Hey Mu, select a few people from the tribe and send them to me. I will teach them the knowledge of farming. This way, when spring comes, they can better complete the planting. Hey Mu immediately nodded, saying he would go select people right away. You said there was no need for such haste. There was still some time before spring. This period would be enough for you to teach basic knowledge to these people, assuming they weren't too stupid, of course. The next day, Hey Mu brought 3 people before you. These 3 were not old. Only 12 or 13 years old, but in the tree tribe, this age was considered almost adult. The males would go out hunting with the other tribesmen, and the females were almost at marriageable age. It couldn't be helped. The average lifespan of primitives was really not long. 50 was basically considered old age. However, this group of people from the tree tribe had received your blessing, so their physical fitness had improved quite a bit and they would likely live longer. Among the 3 were 2 girls and 1 boy. Before the 3 even approached, you could hear the boy from a distance, complaining to Hey Mu. Hey Mu, I don't want to learn about farming. I want to go out hunting with you guys. Hey Mu gave a smack to the back of the boy's head. What kind of talk is that? This is the great ancient tree himself teaching you. It's a rare opportunity, and yet you don't treasure it? Believe it or not, if I shout in the tribe, someone would definitely snatch the chance immediately. The boy looked aggrieved and wanted to argue. But seeing Hey Mu's raised palm, he could only follow obediently. The 2 girls next to him whispered and giggled behind their hands. Hey Mu brought the 3 before you, telling them to study hard and not to be lazy. The boy muttered, in front of the great ancient tree. Who would dare to be lazy? Hey Mu glared at him. What did you say? The boy quickly faced you and said sincerely, I will definitely study hard with the great ancient tree. You laughed inwardly. You told Heimu to rest assured and leave the three to you. The boy was named Shanzi. And the two girls were named Yuha and Qingli. The three had followed adults to worship the ancient tree since childhood and all were devout believers. Although the boy wanted to hunt, being chosen as the student of the ancient tree still made him very happy. You first asked the three some questions. The two girls recognized some seeds. While Shanzi understood nothing at all, you first taught them to select appropriate seeds. Hearing your words, Qingli hesitated to speak, but still plucked up her courage and said, "Great ancient tree, all the seeds we collected have been eaten. There are no seeds in the tribe right now." You extended a branch. The leaves at the tip of the branch were woven by you into a large bag, and inside were all sorts of seeds. Since you intended to teach them farming knowledge, how could you not be prepared? You had already told Jinfeng to collect plant seeds whenever it went out to forage. Over an entire autumn, you had stored quite a few seeds. Some of them even came from outside the tree tribe's territory. Being able to collect such a diverse variety of seeds was all thanks to Jinfeng's efforts. The three gaped when they saw those seeds. Qingli exclaimed, "Great ancient tree, how do you have so many seeds?" Naturally, you didn't answer them, letting them guess for themselves. With seeds, the teaching could proceed. After teaching them to distinguish seeds, you taught them how to make farming tools and how to use them. The three were all very intelligent, and it didn't take much effort for you to teach them. Then came the practice. You had the three pick a piece of wasteland by the river to cultivate using the tools. This would be their training ground, as well as the place for spring sowing. When the tree tribe people saw the three digging in the soil by the river, they were very curious and ran over to watch. You then instructed the three to explain farming knowledge to the other tribespeople while they were tilling. By the time spring arrived, almost the entire tree tribe understood farming. You calculated the time, knowing exactly when spring would arrive. Once it was time, you ordered the three to plant the selected seeds in the ground. The other tree tribe members also came to help. They had absolute faith in your words. So along the river, they cultivated dozens of plots of various sizes and planted all the seeds. Farming doesn't end with sowing. Afterwards, it requires constant care, regular fertilization, weeding, pest prevention, and so on. Even with your guidance, many problems occurred during their first time farming. If they were left to figure it out on their own, it would likely take many years to summarize the patterns. During the teaching process, you discovered another of your abilities. You could accurately see the growth rate of these crops and knew exactly what should be done and when. This way, even without actual farming experience, you could guide others. Half a year passed. Some crops with shorter growing cycles had already produced seeds. The tree tribe welcomed its first harvest. Under the leadership of Shanzi and the other two, a group of women and children gathered the mature crops. This was a crop similar to wheat, but its seed size was only half that of wheat. But even so, for the people of the tree tribe, it was a brand new experience. It was their first time obtaining food through this method. Seeing the large pile of seeds collected, Heimu's face bloomed with joy, and there were still many immature crops in the field. Heimu could already imagine that, as long as they kept planting and harvesting, the tribe would have endless food. They wouldn't even need to go hunting anymore. Heimu looked at the proudly smiling Shanzi and asked, "Shanzi, do you still want to go hunting now?" Shanzi answered cheerfully, "Uncle Hei, the great ancient tree is truly amazing. All of this is his gift." Heimu praised as well. "Yes, this is all the great ancient tree's blessing. This winter, we no longer have to worry about starving." Shanzi suggested to Heimu, "Uncle Hei, I think we should cultivate more land to plant more seeds." Heimu nodded. "Indeed, but before that, we have one more important thing to do. Sacrifice to the ancient tree." Shanzi slapped his forehead in annoyance. "Uncle Hei is right. We should present offerings to the great ancient tree." Shanzi suddenly said, "Uncle Hei, I think the title Great Ancient Tree is not quite appropriate." Heimu's face fell, and he stared angrily at him. "You brat, what are you saying?" Shanzi quickly explained, "Uncle Hei, don't misunderstand. I mean the title Great Ancient Tree isn't grand enough. It cannot fully express the great ancient tree's greatness." "Not grand enough?" Heimu thought, "Isn't great ancient tree enough? What other words can be used to describe the tree's greatness? Then what do you have in mind?" Heimu looked at Shanzi. "If you can't come up with anything, see how I'll deal with you." Shanzi silently shrunk his neck. He could tell Heimu was angry. But Shanzi still spoke up. "Uncle Hei, when I was studying with the great ancient tree, I once heard him say a certain word. I think it's very suitable." "What word?" "God." Heimu repeated it. These primitives hadn't created this word yet. So you had used the pronunciation from your native language. In other words, the pronunciation was the same as the Chinese word Shen. Shanzi nodded. "Exactly, it's God. The great ancient tree said a god is supreme and omnipotent. I think the great ancient tree can be called a god." Heimu immediately nodded. "From now on, I shall call the great ancient tree God. The two agreed to announce this to the entire tribe at this sacrifice. Heimu led the tribespeople to prepare for the sacrifice. This time he planned to present you with rich offerings. So, he first took tribesmen out to hunt a wild boar. After returning, Heimu also had people take some of the newly gathered crops to offer to you. With preparations complete, Heimu brought the entire tribe before you. He laid out the abundant offerings before the trunk. The tree tribe people wouldn't take the offerings back after the sacrifice. This time, Heimu placed a whole beast right in front of you, showing how much importance he placed on this sacrifice. Heimu led the tribesmen in worshipping you. After experiencing the harvest, knowing it was all because of what you taught them, not a single person in the tribe had any doubts about you anymore. Almost everyone had become a devout believer. With this one worship, you harvested as much faith energy as you used to get from several past ceremonies. The surge of faith energy felt incredibly refreshing. After the worship, Heimu announced to the tribespeople that from now on, they would call the great ancient tree god the one and only god of the tree tribe. You were stunned for a moment, hearing that familiar word. You quickly guessed, this must have something to do with Shanzi. In fact, Shanzi had wanted to call you that for a long time, but you had stopped him before. You felt you weren't really some kind of god yet. But with Heimu taking the lead this time, you knew it would be hard to stop them. Even if you forcibly demanded they not use that title, these people might just come up with some other title. After thinking it over, you silently accepted it. However, just being called God didn't sound quite right. You spoke. In that case, you shall call me the tree god. Hearing the ancient tree speak and agree, everyone was delighted. Heimu immediately led all the tribesmen in a loud chant. Great tree god. Great tree god. From then on, you had another name. After acquiring farming techniques, the tree tribe no longer had to worry about food shortages. Later, you even used your ability to help them cultivate higher-yielding crops. With the help of faith energy, it took you a few years to select a batch of crops that grew quickly and yielded a lot. The tree tribe of today no longer relied on hunting for survival, turning instead primarily to agriculture. In addition to that, you also had them capture wild beasts and bring them back in an attempt to domesticate them. 5 years later, another small new tribe joined the tree tribe. The tree tribe's population had now grown to 230 people. It had clearly developed into a larger tribe. At the same time, with more people believing in you, the faith energy you could harvest also increased. By now, you had accumulated enough faith energy to fill your entire massive tree body. On a sudden whim, you controlled this faith energy, making it merge into the trunk. Previously, you had only stored this faith energy without using it. When the massive faith energy merged into your body, a change occurred. You felt your body beginning to grow again. Your current body had essentially finished growing nearly 100 years ago. For so many years, you had shown no tendency to grow any further, yet you hadn't expected today's attempt to actually make you start growing again. Your trunk began to expand outward. The roots beneath you grew longer and thicker, and the branches above began to reach upward. The tree began to tower up, growing from 50 meters upward, not stopping until it reached 100 meters. The current your body had become as tall as a mountain, and the trunk was also much larger than before. It would take at least 7 or 8 people holding hands to encircle it. All these changes were completed in a very short time, taking only about 10 minutes. The commotion of your growth, of course, also startled the people of the tree tribe. They rushed out of their houses one after another, and looking up, they saw you rapidly towering up. Everyone was stunned, gazing at this existence that exceeded their imagination. Seeing your transformation, Heimu ran excitedly to the front of the trunk. When you grew to 100 meters, Heimu suddenly felt that an extra burst of power had appeared in his body. He couldn't help but activate this power. With a boom, a large mass of green light erupted from Heimu. And at that moment, behind him, the phantom tree made of green light also began to slowly rise, as if it were growing as well. Although you had grown taller, your perception was as sharp as before. You immediately sensed the change in Heimu under the tree. You shifted your attention to him. After just a few glances, you understood what kind of change had happened to him. The bloodline power in Heimu's body shared the same origin as your tree body. Before, you could sense the bloodline in Heimu, as if it were the tip of one of your own branches. Now, that feeling was even stronger. Your growth had also strengthened the bloodline power within Heimu. That was why he had uncontrollably triggered this power. The phantom behind Heimu didn't grow for long. After only a few minutes, he was able to control the power in his body again. But Heimu still had many questions in his heart. Similarly, the other members of the tree tribe had also gathered regarding the tree god they worshipped, who had undergone such a massive change. It was impossible not to care. You spoke up. You need not worry. This is just my normal growth. Everyone was relieved to hear your words. If even the tree god said there was no problem, then there certainly was no problem. The crowd bowed to you and went back to their respective tasks. Only Heimu remained under the tree for the time being. He looked up and asked, "Great tree god, just now I felt the power in my body become stronger." You were not mistaken. The bloodline power in your body has indeed been enhanced. Heimu raised his hand and looked at it, then clenched his fist to feel it. He looked up again. "Great tree god, can you grant this power as well? Do you want more power?" Heimu shook his head. "Great tree god, I wanted to pray for this power for the other tribesmen. In the tribe, I am currently the only one with this power. I hope the other tribesmen can have it too. You didn't agree to his request. In fact, you were also thinking about a question. Did these primitives have their own bloodline power? In the past few years, you had been busy watering the tree. Between farming and domesticating animals, the tribe members hadn't had time to study this question. Hey Moo, you should go back for now. I will grant that power when the time is right. Hey Moo nodded and quickly departed. After he left, you began to observe your own body. Since Hey Moo had obtained bloodline power from you, did you possess it yourself? You began to research and experiment, but an answer surely wouldn't come quickly. Having grown to a height of 100 meters, this change was noticed by more than just the tree tribe. Farther away, within a high mountain, several people were hiding in the jungle, preparing to hunt a spirit deer. One person happened to look toward the distance, and immediately saw an incredibly tall tree. Its lush green canopy was practically an emerald mountain. He hurriedly patted his companion's shoulder, wanting him to see if it was real, or if he was hallucinating. The companion slapped his hand away. Quiet. Look over there. Is that a massive tree that appeared on the horizon? What tree? You're seeing things. There are trees everywhere here. What are you talking about? Even as he spoke, he looked up. And he too saw that incomparably tall tree immediately. What is that? I'm sure it wasn't there when we arrived. Let's return to the tribe and tell the chief. The group abandoned the hunt, whistling several times toward the woods. Soon, many snakes of various sizes and emerald green color crawled out from everywhere. They were then caught by the men on their arms. Despite being venomous snakes, they didn't attack these people at all. Carrying the snakes and hunting tools, they hurried down the mountain, looking back at the sky every now and then. Seeing the tree on the horizon confirmed they weren't seeing things. Once they reached the mountainside, the distant tree was obscured by the peaks. Afraid that the tree might disappear, they anxiously scrambled back up a short distance. When they saw the tree was still there, they finally breathed a sigh of relief and hurried back toward their tribe.